everybody, welcome to another knitting tutorial with me, Laura, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how to do this chunky cable stitch here. And in my next video I'm going to show you a different type of cable stitch, the V-shaped cable that you see here. But in this video we are going to be making this one. Okay, so when working cables you're going to need your yarn and your knitting needles as normal, but you're going to need something called a cable needle. And basically just something to hold your stitches out of the way when working your cables. Now you can get one of these little cable needles. Good idea to use one that's the same thickness roughly as the knitting needles that you are using, and you just pop some stitches on and they just hold them out the way while you do something else. Or you could also use a stitch holder if you wanted to. These like little safety pins, or you could even use a crochet hook if you wanted to. I prefer using a little cable needle like this. I find that the easiest. So what do you have to do? Okay, the important thing to remember when working cables is to make them stand out, obviously. And what we've got here are some, if you're new to knitting, and I do recommend checking out my basic stitch tutorials first for the knit stitch and the purl stitch. And what we've got here is we start off here with a little knit stitch, but next to the cable is a purl stitch. So I've used purl stitches either side of the cable, but the cable itself is, as you can see here, little V's, is made up of the knit stitch. So you need to alternate between using a chunk of purl stitches, then your cable in knit stitches, and then the other side in purl stitches. And I just put some knit stitches on the end as well, just to make it a little bit more interesting. You don't have to do that. So that's the most important thing to remember when working cables, is to alternate between purl and then do your cable and knit and then the purl. So what I've done here is I've got a couple of knit stitches at the beginning, and then I've got 4 purl stitches. I've got 4 here, and then my cable is made up of 8 stitches. I've got 4 for either twist. So that twist will have 4 stitches and that twist will have 4. So there's 8 stitches altogether for my cable. Then I go back to 4 purl and I'm ending on 2 knit stitches either end. So, but like I said, you don't have to do those. So we're going to cast on a total, to make this patch here, of 20 stitches. 2 either end, 4 either side of the purl stitch, and then 8 in the middle for the whole chunky cable. So let's cast on 20 to begin. So I'm going to do my little slip knot. Okay, just going to put that on my needle, and I'm going to cast on 20 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to cast on 2 for my little, at the beginning, for my knit stitch edge here. So let's do the 2 for that to begin. So hopefully you've got a bit used to casting on from my other tutorials. So I'm just going to cast on the 2 for the knit stitch at the end. Okay, so that's 1 and 2. So I've got my 2 knit stitches at the end. Then I'm going to need 4 purl for this section here. So I'm going to cast on another 4. Okay, so I've cast on those 2, and then the next 4, they're going to be my purl stitches. Then I need to cast on 8 for my cable, 4 either side. So I'm going to cast on another 8 for my cable. Okay, so I've cast on my 8, that's going to be my cable. Then I need to cast on another 4 for the other side, these purl stitches here. So another 4, cast on another 4. Okay, so I've cast on another 4. And then we're going to finish up with the 2 knit stitches at the end. So I'm going to cast on another 2 for the bar at the end. And 2. Okay, so in total, to make this little swatch here, we need 20 stitches. We've got 2 for our little bars either end, then we've got 4 either side for our purl stitches, and then we've got 8 stitches in the middle to make up our cable, which will be divided into 4. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to work some normal stitches. We're not going to do any cabling as such yet. So the first thing we want to do, these two at the end, we're going to work our little knit bar at the end. So we're just going to knit the first 2 stitches just as normal. So do 2 normal knit stitches. Okay, 1 and 2. So nice normal knit stitches. Okay, then we need to work our 4 purl stitches. 4 purls. We're going to do 4 purl. Remember to bring the yarn to the front before doing a purl. So hopefully you've checked out my knit stitch and purl stitch tutorials. I'm going to do 4 purl stitches. 1, 2, 3 and 4. I think I'm going to have to try and get some miniature knitting needles that fit on the table. It's quite hard to show on camera, a lot more harder than crochet. So there we go, so we've knitted the first 2, purled the next 4. Then our cable is going to be made up of 8 knit stitches. So these are knit stitches in the middle. But we're just going to do normal knit stitches at the moment. So I'm going to knit the next 8 stitches. Remember to move your yarn back to the other side before doing a knit stitch. And we're going to do 8 knit stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. So that's going to be our cable. Doesn't look like much at the moment, but we've got 8 knitted stitches. Then we need to do our 4 cable for the other side here. So I'm going to do 4 cables, bring the yarn to the front. Do our 4 cables. Okay. So 1. To get a different angle because my table's in the way. 2, 3, 4. Almost lost that one. And then we are going to knit the last 2 to do our bar at the end. We're going to knit the last 2. So put our yarn back to the front. I'm just going to knit the last 2. Okay, so that's our very first row. We can start to see our stitches looking different there. Now on the way back we have to do it in reverse. So instead of starting off with knit stitches, we start off with purl stitches. So because you can see here we've got these horizontal bars, they're purl stitches, just like we have in the middle. So we're going to start off with purl stitches this time, but we only do 2 because we did 2 knit stitches the other side. Okay, so I'm going to purl the first 2. This time. Then we're going to knit the next 4. We purled them last time, but this time we're going to, because it's on the way back, it's on the reverse, we need to knit them. So move our yarn to the front. We're going to knit the next 4. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. Then our cable in the middle, which this side was made up of 8 knitted stitches, on the way back it needs to be made up of 8 purl stitches. So there we are. There's our purl 2, 4, 6, 8. So we're going to purl the next 8 stitches. Okay, so you're doing everything in reverse on the way back. So it's going to purl the next 8 stitches. 1. Not doing anything particularly cabley at the moment. And last one, 8. Okay, so I've purled the next 8 stitches, and then these 4, which were purls last time, now become knit stitches on the way back. So move our yarn to the front, and I'm going to knit the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then the very last 2, which were knit stitches last time, on the way back they become purl stitches. So when you work your way back on the reverse in the other direction, you need to do the opposite to what you did in the other direction. Okay, so this is going to be the back, this here, and as you can see where I said the knit stitched cable become purls on the back, so that's why you do it in reverse on the back. So these purl stitches here become knit stitches here. So always do that on the way back. So when we turn it over, we should have a couple of rows of starting to see sort of the general gist of where the stitches are going to go. But now we want to start working our nice chunky cable after we've done a couple of rows. So what we do at this end, before we get to our cable stitches in the middle, we just do the same thing again. We're going to knit the first 2. We're on the way on the front now, so we're going to knit the first 2 instead of purl them. So 1 and 2, and these ones we knitted last time. You can see they got the horizontal bar, they become purls this side, so we're going to purl the next 4. It's really hard to knit on the table with the camera in front. It's alright with crochet because the crochet hooks are quite short. With knitting needles, they're very long, so they're like touching the table. I have no leverage. 3, so do bear with me. And 4. Okay, so we're going to purl those 4. Now we've reached our cable, so now we're going to start working our cable over these 8. 2, 4, 6, 8. These are all knit stitches now on the front. We need to divide them in half, our 8 in half, so we've got 4 either side, so we can get this twist happening. So what we're going to do is we're just going to bring in our cable needle. We're going to pop these first 4 stitches off. So we're just going to slide them onto our cable needle. So 1, I'm just sliding them on to the cable needle, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, to pop those into the middle like so, just keep those safe. I'm going to bring this to the front. Now depending on where you position this, to the front of your needles or to the back of your needles like that, will affect the actual cable. Okay, if they go to the back, if I bring in this one here, which is a different type of cable, if they go to the front, you get this shape. So this half here, you get this shape, which is the same as this, but bigger. So they come to the front, they go in this direction. If they go to the back, your cable will go in the opposite direction, which also gives you a bit of a hint on how to make this. Because we're making it in this direction, on here, it's flowing to the left, we're going to put our 4 stitches here, we've slipped off to the front. Okay, so to the front to flow left, to the back to flow right. That helps. So while they're sat down there out of the way, hopefully not falling off, we are going to knit the next 4. So do make sure that the yarn that you're using is the right way, the right side at the back, like so. A bit more yarn, and we're going to knit the next 4. So we're going to skip those 4 and we're actually going to knit the next 4. So we just knit them as normal. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is why I recommend using bamboo or plastic to hold your needles rather than metal. I've always found with like aluminium needles, metal needles, that they just slip off a lot easier. There's a little bit more grip with plastic and wood. So once you've knitted those 4, we need to bring back these ones we've slipped off. Now you can either knit them directly from the cable needle if you want to, that's why it's a good idea to have the same thickness, or if it's easier you can just, and I do this, I just pop the stitches back on. So bring them up to the edge, and then I'm just going to pop these stitches back on to my left needle. Okay, 2, 3, the last one, and then just put that down. So shove those on there. So they're crossing over now, and then I'm going to knit those 4. Okay, and this can be a little bit awkward, a little bit tight. So just have patience. I'm now going to knit those 4 that we've slipped back onto our needle. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, the last one, 4. Okay, so what effectively you've done there is you've crossed them over, and then we're back to our 4 purls. We're going to purl the last 4 and then knit the last 2 to get to the end. Okay, let's bring the yarn to the front, purl the next 4 and follow the same pattern. I've concluded that purl stitches are harder to do on camera than knit stitches. Okay, so purl those 4. Then we're going to knit the last 2 for a little knitted bar at the end. You don't have to do that, but I just added an extra bar, bit of shape. Okay, so that's our first row of our cable. It can look a little bit odd at the moment at first, it gets a bit chunky there. We're just going to work the reversed row now, and this is exactly the same as our second row that we did. We're going to purl the first 2, knit the next 4, purl the next 8 as normal, no twisting or anything, and then knit the next 4, purl the last 2. So I'm just going to do that to get back to the beginning. So because it's in reverse now, we're not knitting the first 2, we are purling the first 2. Okay, so I'm going to purl the first 2. Okay, then we're going to knit the next 4. You can tell they need to be knitted because you've got little V's instead of horizontal bars. So we're going to knit the next 4. Two, 3, and 4. Then here, where we've got a lovely chunk of twisted stitches, these need to be purls now, and we've got 8 if you remember for our cable, so we're just going to purl the next 8 stitches as normal, so there's no twisting or anything. So our first one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and last one 8. Okay, so I just purled those as normal, and then we're going to knit the next 4 this side because they're purls on the front. So we knit them on the back. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then we just purl the last 2. One and 2. So that completes our cable row. And what I recommend with doing, if you're doing a chunky cable like we are here, I now recommend doing 4 rows. So that's that way, that way, that way, that way. 4 rows of just normal stitches, no twisting or anything. If making a smaller cable like this, which is slightly smaller, it's half the size of this one, I recommend just going backwards then forwards, and then we'll do our next twist. But for the chunkier one, we're going to go backwards and forwards, so 4 rows before we do our next twist. So I'm going to do 4 rows before we do our next twist. And it's just working the same thing. Now we're back to doing knit stitches here because it's on the front. So you just knit the first 2, then purl the next 4. I'm going to purl the next 4. Let's bring the yarn to the front. Then we've got our cable, our chunk of cable, and I'm just going to do normal stitches, just going to knit the next 8 as normal, so no twisting. Just going to knit them as normal. Just going to knit the next 8. So that's over our cable, and just nice normal stitches. Okay, and then we're going to purl the last 4 and knit the last 2, following the pattern. Okay, so that's the end of that row. So that's just a nice normal row, just following the patterns of knit 2, purl 4, knit 8, purl 4, knit 2. And as you can see, there's the twist where we twisted over our stitches, and that creates the beginning of our cable. So now I'm just going to do the reverse all the way back, and then we're going to repeat that again. So I'm just going to go in reverse and start off with purls this time. So remember to do the opposite, and if you forget which ones you're supposed to do, if it's a V underneath, you do a knit stitch. If it's a horizontal bar, it's a purl stitch. So that should help you remember. So I'm just going to go do the reverse, and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've reached the end of that row on the back, and now I'm going to turn it over again. And I'm just going to repeat that again for another 2 rows. I'm going to go backwards and forwards one more time because it's a nice chunky cable. I want to create a little bit more length in between. So the more rows you do of normal stitches, the longer your cable is going to be. So the longer this part will be there before your next twist there. So it'll just make a longer cable. So you can actually have a play with how many normal rows you do before you do your next twist. And that will make the cable look different. So I'm just going to do another 2 rows of just normal stitches, starting off with knit 2, purl 4, knit 8 as normal, purl 4, knit 2. Then on the back I do purl 2, knit 4, purl 8 as normal, knit 4, purl 2. So I'm just going to go backwards and forwards one more time, and then I'll just show you the twist again. So I'll start off with a knit 2. Okay, so I've just finished up my second row on the back, so now I'm back to the beginning. So I've just done another couple of normal rows, and as you can see it starts to flatten out again. So the more rows you do of normal stitches, the longer the space will be in between your twists. But now we want to work on our next twist. So exactly the same as what we did for our last twist. We worked the first stitches as normal, so now we're back to knitting. So I'm going to knit the first two as normal. Okay, so we'll knit the first two. Purl the next four, so keeping consistent with the pattern. 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then we need to do our twist. Okay, so what we did last time is we got our 8 stitches. So here's our 8 stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8. We need to cut them in half, so we've got 4 either side. So when working cables, always make sure that your cable can be divided equally in half. So we're going to pop, otherwise one side's going to be thinner than the other, which could be fun. You could play with that. So I'm going to slip these 4 stitches off onto our cable needle again. So I'm literally just popping them onto this cable needle. 2, 3 and 4. Okay, so pop those 4 and going to put them to the front again. Now you need to be consistent when doing this chunky cable. You need to be consistent with where you place your cable needle. If you suddenly place this to the back this time, you're going to end up with a very strange effect where this twist here will be on top on the way back, so you won't get this proper cable. What would happen is this cable that's supposed to go underneath will be on top, so it'll look a bit strange. You need to be consistent with where you place your cable needles. So if you place it to the front, you need to keep placing it to the front. If you place it to the back, you need to keep placing it to the back each twist, otherwise you'll end up with something looking a bit strange. So place it to the front last time, so I'm going to place it to the front again. Then I need to knit the next 4. Make sure your yarn's in the right place at the back. I'm going to knit the next 4 without it falling off my needle. So I'm going to knit the next 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay, then before we move on, we need to bring up the ones we slipped off, and you can either knit them directly from here or you can prop them back on here. So I'm going to prop them back on to keep it consistent. Okay, and all you do is just pull up slightly so you get those loops nice and clear, and just pop them back on your needle. 2, 3 and 4. Put that out of the way, push them up a bit, and then we're going to knit them. Okay, so it can be a little bit tight, this, so just be patient. Okay, so I'm going to knit these next 4 that we slipped back on. 1, 2. They seem to want to fight to fall off the needle, so you will have to hold them a little bit because they're obviously being pulled away from where they want to be, so they're going to want to fall off your needle, so you just got to keep them on with this hand. Okay, so now we're past our twist and we're back to our 4 purl and knit 2. So bring the yarn to the front and follow the pattern as normal. So back to our 4 purl and knit 2. The yarn to the back for a knit. I'm going to knit the last 2. Okay, so when we've got to the end of this row, we've done our twist, we're going to work the reverse row as normal. So we turn our needle around and then we're just going to work our reverse row as normal, just purling these middle 8 as normal. So I'm going to do that and I'll come back. Okay, so when you get to your middle 8 purl, you just purl them as normal on the back. So you don't do any twists or anything like that, you just purl them as normal. Okay, so when you get to the end of that row, you just flip it over, and then we're going to do 4 rows of just normal knitting, alternating between our knits and our purls to create the length in between. So there we go, you can see it's starting to come together. We've did our couple of lengths, and then we did a twist, then we did 4 rows of just length, then we did a twist, and now I'm going to do 4 rows of length, and then you do your next twist, and you just repeat that over and over again, doing a twist, then 4 rows, a twist and 4 rows. And it starts to come together, and it'll start looking like this. Just make sure that when you do your twist, you bring your cable needle to the front and or the back. Be consistent each time, and you should end up with something that looks a little something like this. And in my next video, I will show you how to do this type of cable, which is very, very similar. It's just alternating between putting the cable needle to the back or the front. So I divide my 8 cable, the same as this, into 4 lots of 2, so you have 2, 2, 2, 2, and so they become like mini cables, mini versions of this, as it were. So this one's on the left hand side, you can see it's the same, but I'll show you that in my next video, and I hope you'll join me for some more knitting fun. See you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye. One thing I will add actually just before I go is when you've finished doing your cabling and you want to cast off, follow the simple cast off method in my other video where you just get your 2 stitches over to the other needle and then pull the first one over the second. But all you do is you alternate between doing your knit stitches and your purl stitches as normal. So you would knit the first 2, so you get your 2 stitches on your right needle, and then you'd pull that first one over the second, should help if it wasn't twisted, over the second, but then you would purl the next stitch. So you'd have to, because these are purls, so you would purl the next one, but you follow the same method, you still pull that first stitch over the second to cast off, and you just do that all the way across. Okay, so you purl the next one, purl the next one, purl the next one, then you would knit the next one. You just follow the same pattern of just pulling the first stitch over the second. That's how you would cast off, but keep the pattern. Okay, you can see that on here at the top here. See, I've knitted those, but they've been purled, but they've cast off with the same method. Okay. Thanks for watching. Bye.